is the Michael Holley Podcast. We are fortunate to be here. Great location, Lovejoy Wharf, Night Shift Brewing. Outstanding facility. So we've been here several times doing the podcast. And I will say, here with Allison Feaster, now we've done the podcast with a lot of people, but I think you may have the distinction. You're in the running, top 3. You may be the smartest person we've had on the podcast. Okay.
I hope I don't disprove that.
Well,
by the
okay.
end
Well,
of this journey.
We'll see what happens. But no, really, I'm so thankful that you decided to join us. I saw you. I almost screwed this up, everybody. I saw you at a breakfast at Harvard.
Yep.
And the first thing I said was like, I met you a long time ago.
Indeed it was, though.
So I was like, okay, you were saying, what are you trying to say? am I that old? And I was trying to say, no, I'm actually that old. But I remember seeing you, and this was right after, maybe it was at the your senior year at Harvard. You were Player of the Year for the 3rd time in the Ivy League. And I think that was just after the upset.
Yeah, it's quite likely.
Yeah. So
the upset,
and we'll get to the upset. What you may be wondering. Okay, what does that mean? We'll talk about it in a second. But this is what I want to start off with, because I know you want to inspire people. You want to inspire everybody. You want to inspire young women, just to reach their full potential.
Right.
And I think one way they can do it is just being incredible in the classroom. And I was just blown away that you were the valedictorian of your high school. So tell us about that. Where'd you grow up, and what was your path to becoming the high school valedictorian and a baller?
Well, grew up in a small town called Chester, South Carolina. It's probably equidistant from Charlotte, North Carolina to the north and Columbia, South Carolina to the south. And, pretty rural town. My path to becoming valedictorian, I would attribute to my mom and to my older sister, my only sister, who were kind of my role models off the court, so to speak. My sister was salutatorian, and we often joke that, I wanted to one-up her and be valedictorian. So that's how that happened.
At the same school?
At the same school.
Okay.
She's 4 years older than I am.
So 4 years older.
Yeah.
She's salutatorian. Everybody's like, hey, everybody, that's great. And you're like, okay, here we go.
Got to get that.
Got to get there. Knock it down.
Yeah, it's been a constant rivalry, academically growing up. She taken honors courses, made, stellar grades. Obviously, she ended up going to Duke, majored in mechanical engineering. So I was like, I got to go for the all A's throughout my school career, and chose Harvard. So,
and it was a goal. So that was a goal of yours. Probably based on your mother and your sister getting there to the number 2 spot.
Right.
So you were thinking all A's, and you were thinking of were you thinking Ivy League at an early age?
I wasn't thinking Ivy League. I was definitely thinking going to the best school I could possibly get into, and because I was also okay in basketball, I knew that a scholarship might come my way.
Humility is a good thing. Okay in basketball. We'll get to that.
So my mom just at some point, planted the seed of, if you go to Harvard and invest, in the short term, you won't have to worry about the financial part paying, because there were no athletic scholarships to Harvard. And whatever aid I got or academic scholarship, obviously wouldn't cover all the costs. So she planted that seed early of, investing on the front end, to later, reap the benefits later. And, that's where it all started.
Where was I can say what was the biggest challenge of that? Just dominating like that in the classroom, and then playing well enough. You're understating it. I won't understate it, but playing well enough to be worthy of getting to the Ivy League, playing basketball. Where was that? What was the hardest part of balancing it?
It was certainly difficult. To kind of manage everything, and then you throw on top of that, when I got to Harvard, a lot of students work study jobs. So you're trying to survive in the classroom. You're fighting the winter cold, going across the river every day to practice. That's a beast in of itself.
Yeah, right.
And then you throw on top of that work study and having a social life. So it's certainly not easy. But I was one of many students at Harvard. There were 40 plus Division I sports at Harvard at the time, so everybody's good at something. So I was, and that's one of the things that really, attracted me to Harvard, is that I would not be singled out for being, some star athlete or just an athlete. Everyone's doing something amazing at Harvard.
Did it come down, was it Harvard all the way, like down the stretch? Were there 3 schools that you were thinking about? And
Yeah.
if so, which schools were there?
So I often get teased about this because so many people would kill to get into these schools. So I was weighing Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Duke, and Rice. Very, very fortunate to even, have those schools in my, kind of recruitment portfolio. But yeah, for me, I'm completely biased. Like once you can get into Harvard, it's one of the most recognizable brands in the world. I didn't appreciate that at the time, but just really thankful that I did.
When did you start appreciating it? Once you got to Harvard, or maybe was it even after?
I think later, I appreciated when I got there, just being in the mix of all these amazing student athletes, amazing, musicians and, experts in their own right. But I guess later down the line, and even today, when you say the name Harvard or that you studied at Harvard, you automatically get, that she's smart,
Yeah.
So that's worth something. Even if you don't have to open your mouth, people automatically can, think you're smart.
And it's so funny because I've noticed over the years, so many people are sheepish about it too.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like draw it out of people like, hey, where'd you go to school? I went to school in Boston.
Cambridge, yeah.
Wait, no, when I say Boston, first they say Boston. All right, so oh man, Boston, where'd you go?
thing.
BU, Boston College? I mean, like it was Boston area.
Yeah.
Well, so we're in the Boston area. I mean, I lived there.
Right,
I know.
right.
Yeah, in Cambridge.
Yeah, did a little something
Oh,
over there.
Harvard. Oh, okay.
Well, I like to say, I lived in the square, so hopefully that'll. I don't want to automatically come out.
The square. Who were some of your classmates that you talk about? Everybody was good. Who were some of your classmates that we would know? Like, oh, you were in the same class as.
Let's see.
This person who's running.
You might know the name Jessica Gelman. She is the CEO of Kager Craft Analytics Group. She worked for the Patriots, other companies for a long time. She's the co-founder of the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference with Daryl Morey, for example. Another classmate of mine, Amy Reinhard, is responsible for global content at Netflix. That little film,
that little thing
that people like to dabble in sometimes in the evenings. The list goes on. Just people who blow me away and amaze me, and I was just glad to bask in their presence. So.
Well, they could say, well, we were teammates, we were classmates with Allison Feaster because when you first got there, you're Ivy League Rookie of the Year, your first year. All right, 17 points a game. Just come in, give me a double your first year in the Ivy League, 17 and 10.
Yeah.
And then from sophomore year to senior year, you're the Ivy League Player of the Year. So 3-time Ivy League Player of the Year, and nobody has done that. You're the only person who has done that 3 times. I mean, what is that? When you think about that accomplishment, did you appreciate it at the time? Do you ever look back? You go through the pictures and say, wow.
No.
Where'd that come from?
It's funny. My collegiate career is really a blur. And I really didn't feel singled out. I didn't feel, as special as those accolades would definitely, make someone feel. I honestly attribute all of that success to my teammates setting me up. I could not have achieved any of those things without first and foremost my coach putting me in a position to be the best I could be, and then my teammates really accepting their roles, and my role just happened to be score, rebound, do a little bit of everything, and put the team in the best position to win. So no, and I don't really reflect on it.
Did you have a player in mind, like growing up, somebody like, okay, my game, that's who I am, that's who I'm going to model my game after? Or was it just, hey, this is what I do well, and so I'm just going to play?
I just knew how to go hard. I couldn't dribble when I got here, so I was playing
you couldn't
post.
Dribble?
No, I was a post player all throughout college. So, it was, and I don't even know if I don't know what my percentages were, beneath the basket. I think I shot 3 or 4 times, got a couple of rebounds, and then finally succeeded in putting the ball in the hoop. So I was
They used to
past
say
my
that about,
stats.
they used to say that about Moses Malone back in the day. Like, Mr.
Right.
Layup, get the
That's-
board, put it up again. But they said he was doing it on purpose.
I definitely did
Just
not.
some nice
But
2020s.
it worked out. It worked out. Put me in the history book. So.
So you were just, it was just, hey, this is what I do.
Yep.
I have the opportunity to do it. Where would you say you improved the most in
Right.
college? Because that last year, the scoring went up to 28 and a half a game. That was a big jump from the
Right.
previous year. How did you improve
I would say
the most?
I would say probably outside shooting. We had a small lineup. I'm 5'11", probably the second tallest player on the floor, and in order to win big games against top 25 teams, and we had the luxury to play those teams, we had to be efficient from the outside. I think we played Vanderbilt one year and had 18 three-pointers at some point in the game. So it was, I guess, my outside shooting really developed, and that really propelled me and permitted me to play guard when I moved to the professional ranks. So
We'll get to that in a second. Before you go pro, the upset that I referred to, you're the number 16 seed
yeah,
in the NCAA tournament your senior year. You're taking on the number 1 seed, Stanford. It gets worse than that. The obstacle gets even bigger because the game was at Stanford.
yeah,
So on their home floor, they're the number 1 seed. You're number 16. And at that point, we had never seen a number 16 beat a number 1. As a matter of fact, it just happened for the second time in 2018. So
Right.
there was a long gap between a 16 beating a 1. Did you go into that game thinking, let's keep it close? Or were you crazy enough to say, we got this? I mean, it's the number 1 seed, they're okay. They're all right.
right. Definitely didn't go in with that level of confidence, but confident that we could compete and put ourselves, in a position to win. I remember feeling the entire group felt a little slighted that we got a 16 seed because we had a pretty decent season. And felt totally disrespected when we were watching the selection show at our coach's home, and so that was a little fuel to the fire. I will say this, and this is just worth mentioning: they did have 2 of their starters out injured, but you couple.
They weren't really hurt. That was a disrespect too. They said
were.
we got we
not even
can
gonna
win
play.
without we ain't gonna play them. That's the second round.
I'll tell you what was
They made it up.
disrespectful, though.
What?
What was disrespectful to me, just as a competitor that I am, when we got there and the game is, about to, pop off, there's a freshman defending me. So I'm like, it's on.
Right.
So, yeah, that was the end of it.
I saw a clip the other day of Michael Jordan. This is like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So Michael Jordan is playing against the young Bulls, and he at that point he had retired, but he
Right.
came back. But he's just playing some pickup stuff with them. And at one point he says to one of the players who was trying to defend him, he said, "Look around." Look
Yeah.
around, because the banners were up there.
It's mental.
He's like, look around. Like, why do you think you can come to me? I'm a 6-time
Yeah.
champ, 6-time Finals MVP. So, hey, I'm a 3-time Ivy League player of the year. You're going to put a freshman on me? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we felt a little something about that.
No, you won't say this. I'm going to just tell the audience. So Harvard wins by 4. Allison Feaster, 35 and 13 in that game. So did you know pretty early that you had it?
No, I think at halftime I recall thinking, I mean, we're up at the half. Like, how's this? At some point they're gonna, there's gonna
Make their
be,
run or
there's
something.
gonna be a change of rhythm or something. But we just kept going with it, and I think everyone at that point was really focused in, honed in, and yeah, we did it.
So big upset there. Harvard knocks off a number 1 seed. Now you eventually were drafted
Yep.
5th overall, WNBA. Was that so at that point you're drafted, did you say, oh sure, this is why I've been playing ball at Harvard, I want to play in the pros? What
No.
were your thoughts about the future post
Right.
senior year, post graduation?
Interestingly, all that kind of coincided with our interview period at Harvard. I was interviewing. I interviewed with Goldman Sachs and with Merrill Lynch. Actually had a job offer with Merrill Lynch that I was planning to accept before the draft happened. And, yeah, we win that big game. It's the first time we ever played on national television. Finally got some respect on my name, leading the nation in scoring. And,
Yeah.
So it's legit. I can play. And, yeah, got drafted and decided to give it a go.
Merrill Lynch, you majored in economics, is that
Yes.
right? So what was the job at Merrill Lynch? What was the job description?
I was going to be an equities analyst, so thank goodness I didn't have to take that route.
And so you had to call him back and was like, hey,
Yeah.
thanks for the offer,
Right.
but, I just got drafted. I don't know if you watched the WNBA draft. I'm a lottery pick, so.
And it worked out.
You can use it for leverage. You could probably be the only draft pick who says, look, I got this job.
Yeah.
Merrill Lynch, can you match what the Los
Right.
Angeles Sparks are going to?
They probably could at the time.
I'm sure they could.
we won't go there.
Yeah. Well, I think we should, though. We should go there because that has been a big topic of conversation lately, equal pay. We've talked about it in soccer.
Right.
We rarely talk about it in the WNBA. I think people either don't know what the pay differences are, or they just accept, okay, well, it's the NBA versus WNBA, so, of course, there's going to be a big difference. How do you see it?
It's definitely not apples to apples, in terms of the revenue producing part of it. I mean, there's just really no question. The NBA produces at the NBA itself. The NBA has, leagues under its umbrella, but the NBA, the men's basketball league, the revenue they produce is, it is what it is. It's astronomical. On the other hand, the WNBA is not that. At the same time, the salaries are staggering.
Yeah.
And we have the top women's league in the world, top women's professional basketball league in the world with, arguably some of the best athletes in the world. They're hopefully one day they will get what they deserve.
How do you assess the level of play, the WNBA, when you're 10 years in the WNBA?
Right.
So 99 to 08, 09, somewhere in there. How would you assess it then versus now?
Wow. At the time, it was pretty intense. There's a lot that's packed into those 4 months of season. But again, it's tremendous now. I watch television. It's a completely different product than the NBA, obviously, but the way those women compete, the way they shoot, the way they defend, the way they lead, it's something I want my daughter to see. I often, reference the players who are in the WNBA and use them as examples for her because there's no other, better role models out there for her. So the level of play now is tremendous.
It really is. It's amazing to me. I remember watching UConn. So I had just gotten to Boston 94. So 95, I covered the undefeated UConn. There's several of their games. And so, Nikesha Sales and then Rebecca Lobo.
Contemporaries.
And I'm like, okay, man, they're playing some pretty good ball.
Yep.
Then when I saw them, not them, but UConn 4 or 5 years later, it was a championship in Philly.
Yeah.
It was UConn versus Tennessee. So Kara Lawson was a freshman on that team.
Yep.
Freshman or sophomore, I remember, point guard, smart. I said, okay, she's going places. The level of play was much higher in a 4 or 5 year span that I had seen in 95. And not that it was bad.
Right.
It was never bad. I was watching good basketball. It's just amazing how the game just develops at such a high level so quickly. Why do you think that is?
I think a myriad of reasons. I think more resources are being dedicated to women's sport. On Title IX coming, on the heels of Title IX, everything is a long way to go, but things are getting better for women and opportunities in sports. But you definitely pointed out two titans in women's basketball, and it doesn't stop there. It's getting more competitive around the globe. So I think everyone's raising standards, raising the level of play, and women have opportunities now to compete here. So it's a year-round thing.
Now, I don't know if at the event we were at, I don't know if Marissa Mosley, Coach Mosley, was there from BU.
Right.
So she's a head coach at BU.
I think I met her, at Brad Stevens' conference, yep.
She was an assistant at UConn for 9 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And she was able to count how many losses they had over 9 years. I think they lost more games in her first year at BU last year than they did over the course of her UConn career. Now, I've heard lots of debates about this. Some local people, some local writers have said, UConn winning, being so dominant is bad for women's basketball. I don't believe that. Do you think that that level of dominance is bad for the sport?
I don't think it's bad. And you look at the upsets that have happened. I mean, the last time UConn raised a banner, there's definitely a target on UConn's back. I don't think it's bad. I think it gives young girls something to aspire to, and not just the ones who are selected by UConn's, the ones out there who don't go there. I know for me personally, I would have shied. Even if I didn't have the opportunity to go to UConn, but even if I did, I would have shied away from it because, somebody has to play the underdog. Somebody has to knock off the giant. So I'll play that role.
You mentioned a couple of times inspiring young girls. Is that something that has always been on your mind from the start? And if so, how was that? How did that become?
Right.
Like, I don't want to say maybe a mission is too dramatic, but
yeah,
for lack of a better word,
yeah.
a mission for you.
So, I reflect on my upbringing and my past, where I'm from. I remember once when I was in the 7th grade, and a woman from South Carolina, African-American woman from South Carolina, came to speak to our class, and she happened to be going to Princeton. And for the first time, I think I understood what an Ivy League school was, and what attending a school of that magnitude could offer, the opportunities. For me, it was always about getting a better job to help the family. And so thank goodness I had 2 strong role models in my life, my mom and my sister, and other women in our family too, who were educators, who really instilled in us that education was the key to having opportunity. So you couple that exposure early, and then the vehicle that basketball is, that being a professional athlete is, when you combine those two, it's a powerful, megaphone to reach some young girl or some woman who may not know something is possible. So whenever I get the opportunity to engage or speak or just be in the presence of someone who is, working hard to improve their station in life, or just wants to learn about what's out there, I take it very seriously, because I know, I got here on the backs of some other women, who led the way. So.
And I think it's amazing too. Back to your Merrill Lynch job offer, coming out of Harvard, senior at Harvard has this job offer. You get drafted, 10 years in the WNBA, career over? No.
Yeah.
You still played another 8. So you had an 18-year career. I mean, did that ever cross your mind? Once you got drafted, what did you think? Did you think, I'll do this for 10 years? Did you think I'd do it for 5 years?
Oh,
year
no.
to year? What
Yeah.
were your thoughts versus what actually happened?
I think if I could have had things in a perfect world, I probably would have played the WNBA season and gone to work. But that was not realistic, or maybe I didn't ask the right questions. But definitely didn't foresee playing so long. And I guess there are parts of me that are thankful I played so long, and other parts that I'm here now. Thankfully, I played that long, but I was definitely lost and had a lot of moments of darkness and confusion, because I was dedicating all this time to being a professional athlete. But I was unaware that all the skills that I was acquiring, over this long career would, set me up for this role now. So definitely didn't foresee it. It wasn't easy coming out of it, but definitely thankful I did it.
When you say darkness and loneliness, specifically, what was it that was kind of causing some confusion?
Right. Or just not having things figured out. There's, when you're on the court and you have thousands and people, cheering for you, you're hot when you're on the court, and then when the lights go down, it's hard to get people to help you, or you just are unclear on the path ahead. So, and luckily for me, I have had an education. I had a pretty decent network at the NBA league office, former Harvard teammates, and so forth. So it took me a while to kind of figure things out. But if I'm not that person, then where does that lead me? It could be pretty dark for you.
And also, Allison, this is something that most male athletes, I'd say most, I wouldn't say none of them think of it, but most male athletes don't have to think about it. Most fans are not
Right.
thinking about it watching in the NBA, where at one point you took maternity leave
Oh, yeah.
from your professional career and then resumed your career.
Right.
What were some of the challenges of that? What was your thinking during that time?
Right.
Before maternity leave, during maternity leave, and then when you came back, when you have to separate from your child and play
Right.
and play ball. What was that like?
So we'd always planned, to have a family, and it kind of coincided with my knee injury. I was having a hard time coming back from having my knee scoped, so we decided to, start family planning, and got pregnant in, I think it was May of 2005. May 2005. Took some time off from the European season, but when I got pregnant, I did come and play the WNBA season. I played till I was maybe 4 months pregnant, and had to take the year off playing in Europe, which was obviously the bulk of the earnings.
20-second timeout.
Yeah.
You played until you were 4 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay. just put that out there. 4 months pregnant.
So yeah,
okay.
The doctor said,
Go ahead.
The doctor said you can continue as long as you're comfortable. There's really little risk, as long as you don't, get a hard hit. But I definitely noticed the, abdominal muscle stretching, and so I had to cut my compression shorts, just kind of relieve a little bit of the pressure as it got closer to the 4-month mark. But yeah, maybe a little fatigue too, but kept going as long as I could, and yeah, this is what we do.
See, that's incredible. That's incredible. So as your career, because you were going all over the world too. You
Right.
played in Italy, you played in Spain,
Yeah.
you played in Portugal. Did I miss that?
France.
And France, of
Yeah,
course.
France.
I miss France. France is great. Playing all over the world, what did that do? I mean, there are the obvious cultural differences, but is there anything that stands out that just was eye-opening for you or just made you think in a different way?
Yeah, so I always approached playing in Europe and my travels around the world as another iteration of being dropped off in Harvard Square all over again. Like, it was coming from South Carolina, coming up here to go to school, not knowing anyone, not really speaking the language of culture, or I was clueless and had only been exposed to black and white pretty much. So my travels around the world and being immersed in a different team, in a different, culture, in a different, not knowing the language, being the only American, being the only African American, being the only, over and over and over again. So it definitely taught me a strong lesson in how to survive and how to adapt in uncomfortable situations. But it was great. It was learning how to appreciate life too. So something I don't know if we always take advantage of here in the United States, but yeah, it was great.
And France is really special to you. Can you tell our audience why France stands out? I believe you're a naturalized French citizen. So is that a place where, is it so special where you could you think you could live there, or long term, or it's like, oh, maybe not that?
Well, I love France. France has a special place in my heart. My teams there were, pretty successful. We won a couple of EuroLeague titles, and was very fortunate to get the French nationality because it helped me, play as long as I did. There's a rule where you can only have a certain amount of foreigners on your team, and I didn't count against that quota, so was definitely beneficial professionally. However, Spain has a special place in my heart too. Spain is tremendous. I don't know if you have the chance to visit both. The Spanish really know how to. They work, but they also know how to play.
I had a good time. Huh?
I had a very good time.
You had a long career, though, so that didn't get in the way of the career.
No.
You speak a little French? Speak a little Spanish?
Yeah, I speak French, speak Spanish, little minimal Italian. But I always made it a point to learn. Like if you think you're going to live somewhere, you really have to not be that American looking for KFC or TGI Fridays, in Paris. So.
You say KFC, but I did try that Popeye sandwich, that chicken sandwich the other day. I waited out for it.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's
Okay.
pretty good. I hate to give. I think it's such a big publicity stunt. It's a marketing scheme. I fell for it, but it is pretty good. Let me ask you. Let me ask you this. So, your career is winding down, and what are your thoughts? Because I'm going to get to where you are right now.
Right.
What are you thinking? Hey, I want to work in a front office.
Ooh.
Hey, Merrill Lynch offered a job back in the day. Maybe I can call up Merrill Lynch and see what they have.
If only. So in 26, back up to 2014, I was playing on a second division team in Spain. I was working for a Spanish company, and the second division team didn't have a lot of money to pay me, so they had an agreement with a university in the city of Madrid, and so I was lucky enough to get my MBA while there. So I'm thinking about what's next, and had really zero clue about what I wanted to do. I was also kind of volunteering as an ambassador for the NBA in Europe, Africa, and Asia, doing camps, doing junior NBA launches. Very fortunate to have had, that connection, but still didn't know how I was going to, translate that into a day job. And then this wonderful program was created in 2016 at the NBA, the Basketball Operations Associates Program, and it really permitted me and 5 other former players to have upfront and close-up exposure to 5 NBA teams and the league office. Just an overview of what, the business behind basketball really is. And it was then when I kind of connected the dots. I worked with Memphis, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Washington, and I made a last-minute trade with one of my colleagues to work with Boston. I had Atlanta. She had family in Atlanta, and I said, you give me Boston, you take Atlanta, and so kind of the rest was history.
Pretty good trade.
Yeah, really thankful, because that's when I walked up cold turkey to Danny Ainge and was like, hi, I'm this Basketball Operations Associate, and he's like, okay, what can you do for me?
Now, how was that first interaction with Danny?
It was, like I said,
can't read this guy, huh?
It was being dropped off in Harvard Square all over again, really outside of my comfort zone, but really necessary because I had to forge a relationship. I had a mission. I had to learn about, Boston, and it started there, and then, throughout the course of the year, I had a chance to visit and learn, here on site. So it was great.
And so the job, when did they get to the point where they said, okay, Allison, we want to bring you on, and when they said that, what did they have in mind for the position?
So I think, and I would like to think I made a good impression back then. From that point, from being the associate at the league office, I went to work at the G League for 2 years, and just continued communication. And then more recently, before Summer League, I got a call from Danny, and we discussed being the director of player development, and it didn't take many conversations after that to realize that this was an opportunity for me, and things worked out the way they were supposed to work out.
So what do you do now with the job? I mean, what is one thing or a couple of things that you do that you say, okay, I'm going to make my mark here. This is what I want to do with the position.
So I really believe I have a lot of value to add, just in terms of the experiences I've had on and off the court. I've played the game these guys have played. I've studied at the highest level. I've had a chance to work at the best sports league in the world, and so I try to lead with that. I try to expose them to this wonderful city and academic institution that is so dear to my heart, that will remain nameless, somewhere in Cambridge.
Somewhere in
Cambridge.
Some school in Cambridge.
So it's based on those principles, those foundations that I have, and it's really about helping them to maximize this experience. They have a lot going on the court, and whatever I can do to kind of help them broaden horizons off the court, and start thinking about something to relieve that basketball, whatever it is, and think about other things. So that's really where it starts.
You know what, Allison, I think people would be surprised to learn that players need those types of things, because we talk about them in such one-dimensional ways.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, this guy's a first-round pick, and he's got millions of dollars, so he'll figure it out.
Right.
Life is good.
It's not like
I
that.
want to have their life.
Right.
That's it. But it's much more. It's much deeper than that. Do you think they even understand early what kind of power and possibilities that they have?
I would like to think now it's better than it was, and I take myself as an example. I really didn't understand. I was so fixated and immersed in trying to, prolong my professional career. I was trying to be at the top of my game. I was trying to maintain being an elite level athlete, and it's not always easy when you're dedicating so much physical and mental energy into that to have physical and mental energy to do other things. Regardless of what your interests are, and you could be the most well-rounded person out there, physically, this professional sports job is all demanding. And so when we can, find time to do other things off the court, that's what we do. We try to maximize it the best we can.
How would you advise somebody who would want to, like, let's say a 25-year-old player now, 25,
Right.
26-year-old player, hey, one day I want to be a general manager, one day I want to own a team.
Yep.
What would you advise them to do now?
Yes. Be a sponge. First and foremost, understand that your playing experience does not automatically qualify you to be a coach, a GM, or in anything. You have to learn what these people do on a day-to-day basis. Take advantage of the current front office. Sit down, schedule time with each and every person and understand what their role is in the organization, which is what we did as basketball operations associates. When we visited with teams, we sat down with team presidents, with just about everyone in the business office, with general managers, with director of player personnel, director of scouting, just understanding what goes into building a team, running an organization, et cetera. So it's maximizing your time off the court to find those little moments where you can learn.
I got a few more questions for you, then I'm gonna let you go. You haven't
Okay.
gotten tired. I said
No,
at the
this is
beginning, I
awesome.
said we're gonna go until you get tired. You said no,
All
I'm
right.
not gonna get tired anyway. So I always ask this for people in various industries. What's one thing you love about your industry, and one thing the industry could radically improve?
Ooh. One thing that I love about my industry is I just take basketball, sport in general. It's such a universal language. It has such a strong power to unite, to bring out the best in people, to help people really achieve things above and beyond what they thought they could achieve. Some of my best moments were, having a goal and fighting and working towards that goal. And the other question was,
Yeah, that was it. That's the best. And what's
Yeah.
the thing it can improve? Where can it get better?
Wow. There's always room for improvement, and I'm going to try to look at an opportunity for once. I think that's a good question. And I don't have the answer to it.
Let's put a pin in it. We'll put a
Yeah.
pin in that, because I may come back to it. You think about it. And I'm gonna ask you another question. You'll be like, okay.
Because there are a lot of
I'm not-
imperfections,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean.
I will
okay,
say,
here we go.
okay,
There we
I got
go.
one.
Well, I was
I got
gonna
one.
toss one up to you. A little
All right,
alley-oop.
no, I got one. It would be great if there were a better media-athlete relationship or a media-coach relationship. I think a lot of times there's a disconnect, or there's just miscommunication, and so there's a divide that's created. So I think that's one area of opportunity, working on improving that divide between the athlete and the media.
Yeah, and you think it exists because maybe part of the divide is expectations.
Yeah.
So, the media, you're a member of the media. You go in and you think, hey, I've got a job to do. I've got to
Right.
ask these questions.
Right.
And I expect
Yeah.
that they know,
Mm-hmm.
athlete, coach, general manager, owner,
Yeah.
I expect that they know what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Right.
And then from the player side or from the other side,
Yeah.
basketball operations side, don't they understand that I've got this whole
Yeah.
thing I got to think? Can't just be one thing. I got to think about 3 or 4 different things.
Yeah.
Or this is what my preparation is like. Don't they understand? So it's
Right.
just like maybe not an understanding of expectations of what each side has to deal with.
Yeah, that could be the solution to the. I don't know if it's a problem. I think
Oh,
it's an
I think
opportunity.
I think it's I think it's
We'll just call it an opportunity
Yeah,
for
yeah, okay.
improvement.
that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, I could
But
see it
then
being a problem.
you couple that too with how journalism, and you correct me if I'm wrong. There's a sensational nature to a lot of things nowadays,
Sure.
which exacerbates the divide. So
And that leads, and that's a podcast for another
Yeah,
day. It really
it
is.
is. It
Because
is.
I think part of it is you're absolutely right. Part of that is I would say some insecurity
Yeah.
on the part of the journalist
yeah,
who feels that he or she has to stand out in some
Yeah.
in some way, and maybe and I say insecurity because I would say you stand out on what you have
Yeah.
on your principles and
Right.
and the thoroughness and your
Right.
fairness. But maybe that's not always the case. And then the other thing is, it is a business.
It is.
You ask me about ways to improve
It
our
is.
industry. It's a business. So the
Yeah.
business says, hey, that is what
That's
gets
what
people
sells.
attention. That's what gets the
Right.
ratings. And so it's that tension of, hey, do I want to do that? I want to be true to my journalistic principles, or
yeah.
don't want to chase those dollars.
That's true.
Back and forth. That's
That's
just being
true.
real. Who's the best player you played against? And who's the best player you've seen? Best player you played against and best player you've seen.
Best player I played against. Geez Louise, I'm very proud of being a good defender for the most of my career, but there are a few times I was torched. Cynthia Cooper is probably at the top of the list. Like
Yep.
she's wasn't the quickest, but she was definitely the most deliberate and just the overall. I don't want to use the word killer, but that's pretty much what she was. Like you knew she was going to get buckets.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. Cheryl Swoops, Diana Taurasi.
Listen. You get torched by those.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that. Those
Right.
are some great players.
Those are some great ones.
Who's the best player you've seen, or have you mentioned them already? Best player you've seen, male, female,
Best player
NBA,
I've seen.
international.
I don't know, but I'm gonna tell you this. I'll let this be my last word on players. I'm pretty darn impressed with Kemba Walker, on and off the court, and just watching up close and personal what he's able to do on the court it has to elevate him pretty high. I'm not by no means saying he's the greatest ever, but just that level of confidence and effectiveness against giants is admirable.
I was going to say, is it the quickness? Because I've noticed a couple of times, and I didn't realize this because I was, just to be real about
Yeah.
it. Man, when free agency was up, I was like, I wanted the Celtics I'd love to see Malcolm Brogdon. I wanted to get
Yeah.
Brogdon and Smart in the same backcourt. That'd be fun. But I didn't realize this about his game. He gets open. He can get open.
Yeah.
Pretty much anytime he wants. And I think that is maybe anticipation, quickness. Is that what stands out, or is it something else on the court? I mean,
What stands out to me is, you have leaders who are given a title. You are president, go lead something, or you or this, go lead something. His brand of leadership is more about action and inspiration. And a lot of times that's what it takes to get a team on your back and lead the charge. And that's what's most impressive to me.
I like it. Action and inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to this podcast back just so I can hear that and be inspired by that again. But truly, I appreciate you taking the time to join us for the podcast. You're very busy. I know that.
Real pleasure.
You got a new job. You're implementing some cool things. So this doesn't have to be the last time. We can check in right before the playoffs start, and we can do another one.
Yeah, right when we raise that banner.
You put it out there. Okay, all right. So if you put it out there, here's our plan. Win a championship. Now, don't act like you don't know me when you win a championship. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Trust me.
What's your name again?
Trust me. We have to open up these taps if we win the championship.
Well, win the championship, we'll have a nice little party here.
All right.
Night Shift Brewing will provide all the essential things that we need to have a good party. Bring in a DJ, all kinds of stuff. But Allison Feaster, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Real pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, Michael Holley Podcast brought to you by Night Shift Brewing. Lovejoy. We'll see you.